An I-9 investigation found a pattern where you, the public, are kept in the dark about allegations of abuse and criminal investigations of school staff.
All a district needs to do is let the employee under investigation resign. And our I-9 investigation found that's exactly what's happening. KCRG TV9's chief investigative reporter Ethan Stein explains this allows staff to keep working with kids at other schools.
Chris and Beth, a bus driver accused of duct taping kids, a teacher's aide accused of sending nude photos to students, a police investigation into a teacher. All of these happened in eastern Iowa schools within the last 18 months. In each case, the staff member accused resigned for personal reasons. That's key because if a public employee is fired or resigns in lieu of termination, Iowa law makes the reasons a public record, but resignations for personal reasons are not. That keeps parents and other schools, future employers, in the dark. Remy Jane is like any other 5-year-old, talking with her mouth full, but what she said happened to her on a school bus left her parents shocked.
She was duct taped. Her hands were duct taped together.
Misty Ruggles is her mom. Earlier this year, the district let her see the security camera footage from the bus showing the driver duct tape her daughter and other students to their seats. The district refused to release the video to us, citing staff and student privacy. The county attorney told parents they only had evidence of it happening for about a month, but parents believe it may have started sooner.
And that's just as far back as they could go on the videotapes. We don't know if it started sooner or not.
The Tri-County School District allowed the driver to resign. Keokuk County Attorney Amber Thompson found the driver did in fact place duct tape on children, but she did not press criminal charges, saying the driver's intent did not rise to the levels to meet the elements of a crime. Months later, the same bus driver was offered a job driving preschool kids at Sieta Head Start until parents complained. Sieta Head Start rescinded that job offer and told us it didn't know about those allegations, saying the driver had passed a background check.
They would only pop up in a background check if charges were filed and they were found guilty.
Elizabeth Jeglick studies child abuse at John Jay College. She says background checks don't tell schools about a potential hirer's full past like an investigation. That includes this search warrant I-9 found about a teacher's aide in a different school district. It says students received nude photos from a teacher's aide in the Clayton Ridge School District. It also says the aide had sexual intercourse with a minor and possibly another 16-year-old student. Clayton County Attorney Zach Herman told TV9 leads in the case ended once KCRG aired a story about an investigation. No charges were ever filed. The district declined to talk to us on camera, but Clayton Ridge Superintendent Shane Wall said in an email the aide resigned effective the week before the school was made aware of possible misconduct on March 3rd. And immediately notified law enforcement. While resignations don't stop criminal investigations, details of those investigations rarely become public without charges. For example, we still don't know why police opened an investigation this past spring into a Union Middle School teacher. 3 search warrants tied to the case remain sealed indefinitely, and police denied our open records request for more information, saying it is part of an ongoing investigation. Unless or until he faces criminal charges, all of this might remain a secret.
How would a school district necessarily know about this?
They wouldn't.
The Union District refuses to say more, saying the teacher resigned in April, you guessed it, for personal reasons. But in that voluntary resignation, the district agreed to pay the teacher $15,000, and it will only tell future employers his dates of employment.
So it just gets swept under the table.
After her daughter was duct taped, the Ruggles moved to Wapello to get out of the Tri-County School District, but this pattern of schools allowing those under investigation to continue working with children elsewhere makes Ruggles feel like school is not safe for her children.
Ugh, it's disgusting. Like, makes me want to pull my kids out of school, period.
The Tri-County School District did not respond to our repeated attempts for an on-camera interview. This problem doesn't only exist in schools, it exists in law enforcement too. We'll tell you that story in the loophole creating these problems tomorrow at 6. In studio, Ethan Stein, KCRG TV 9 News.
Efforts to stop what's known as passing the trash in Iowa government jobs have come up short.
It's a follow-up to our KCRG TV9 I-9 investigation that found school staff who were able to hide allegations of abuse or bad behavior from the public and future employers. KCRG TV9's I-9 investigative reporter Ethan Stein joins us in the studio to explain the legal loophole that allows this.
Beth, Chris, recent changes to Iowa law have tried to make it so whenever a public employee, like a police officer or teacher, does something wrong, we all know about it. But our I-9 investigation found that's not always happening. One county sheriff told us he's seen it firsthand and says the legislature needs to step in again. Greg Grover worked sexual crime investigations for years before becoming the Jones County Sheriff. He recalls multiple cases where a school staff member had an inappropriate relationship with a student, and in the course of the investigation, learning it was not the first time they've been accused of that.
And I have seen it in cases where they will simply resign, they move to another school district, get another school job without that school having any idea of that investigation.
This practice happens across the country. The federal government even has a name for it, passing the trash. A federally funded research project called the practice common for education administrators who fear legal liability and tarnished reputations. Here's how it works. An employee facing investigations after allegations of misconduct just simply resigns. That resignation can act as a trash bag. It hides the investigation or the allegation because the school district doesn't have to disclose that. Then another school district can then hire that employee without having any knowledge of that investigation unless charges are filed. Grover says he faces a similar situation when he's hiring new deputies. He says he only gets limited information when calling an applicant's former employer for a reference.
I absolutely would like to know if somebody has been suspended twice for using excessive force. You know what I mean? I don't have access to that.
A 2017 state law requires public agencies to release the reason somebody was fired, demoted, or resigned to avoid termination.
I think that was a good step.
But Sheriff Grover says there's still a problem.
Now where the loophole can be is if I catch wind that this is going on, I just straight up and resign and I move, and if I didn't face termination, then that resignation is not open to our opens records request here in the state of Iowa.
The district placed the teacher on leave and allowed him to resign.
Iowa tried to stop this again after I-9 uncovered a teacher accused of misconduct that Lynn Marr let quietly resign for personal reasons. The legislature passed another bill Governor Kim Reynolds signed into law in 2019. It requires schools report teachers accused of abuse or who resign after an allegation of misconduct to the state licensing board within 30 days. But the board only applies to licensed staff, meaning the allegations we found of a bus driver duct taping kids or teacher's aides sending nude photos to students are never reported.
It makes it more difficult to weed out the bad apples.
Randy Evans is the executive director of the Iowa Freedom of Information Council. He says Iowa's public record laws lack the nuances to protect workers' right to privacy versus the public and employers' right to know who they're hiring.
How can communities do a full background check on public employees?
Well, it makes it much more difficult when the public record is deliberately missing.
It's why Sheriff Grover knows change is needed at the state level.
We can, and I say we as a society, we as legislators, we can improve the process.
Another issue with that second law we mentioned, there are no defined punishments for violating them. Texas did something about that in 2017. Superintendents there could face a felony and jail time for not reporting complaints against a teacher to the state. In studio, Ethan Stein, KCRG TV 9 News.
When school districts are hiring, they cannot see if an applicant is under investigation.
Our I-9 team found current laws are not stopping public employees from hiding misconduct allegations or investigations. KCRG TV 9 I-9 Chief Investigative Reporter Ethan Stein shows us one group hiding those investigations is the state's own licensing board. Ethan.
Beth, Chris, the Iowa Educational Board of Examiners is the state agency in charge of educational licensing. It doesn't display if an investigation to a teacher is occurring or if a teacher has even pled guilty to assaulting students. Other than a reference and mandatory background check, Superintendent Gary Benda uses the internet to learn about a job candidate's history. He's looking through social media, local news, and the Iowa Board of Educational Examiners.
So assuming they've got a license, I can go through them and see if the license has a hold or if it's ever been suspended or whatever.
But the Board of Educational Examiners doesn't always display if one of his applicants is under investigation for sex offenses, abuse, or even pled guilty to other types of misconduct. For example, this Spanish teacher was charged with assault after biting a student's arm. A criminal complaint says she left imprints and did it in front of the class. She was allowed to resign and pled guilty to disorderly conduct. Her teaching license is still active and is under a different name and makes no mention of the biting incident. This is not an isolated case. A former Des Moines teacher was sentenced for having a sexual relationship with a student. Neither of his two state educational licenses say anything about those charges, an investigation, or a hold. We did reach out to the Board of Educational Examiners for an interview, but they declined. We also shared our findings with every state lawmaker on an education committee.
Some of the things that come from the BOE just are a little bit disappointing.
Republican Dustin Hite chairs the Education Committee in the State House. He's looking at new legislation to take away licenses from teachers when they plead guilty to certain crimes, like sex offenses, but said he's looking at ways to improve the Educational Licensing Board as a whole.
And kind of what I would say is to me, everything's on the table. If somebody comes up with a good idea that I think is a good idea, I'm happy to run with that too.
In an email statement, Democratic State Rep Art State thanked us for uncovering these issues. He says he's trying to figure out where the state needs better enforcement of current law and where lawmakers need to make changes, saying he's ready to draft legislation. For now, Superintendent Gary Benda says the board could do a better job here.
I would tell you that they're not my first and most, trusted reference check.
Lawmakers and superintendents say it's hard to make changes because people are innocent until proven guilty. You can read 2 more investigations in our series, Passing the Trash, right now on our website, kcrg.com. In studio, Ethan Stein, KCRG.TV9 News.